Hello Hastings, welcome to a new spot. We don't do this too much in here. This is the City Council chambers here at Hastings City Hall. And we are with the Ward 1 City Council member, Tony Alongi. Tony, good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too, Tom.
We are here to talk to Mr. Alongi because he won't be the City Council member for Ward 1 much longer.
No?
No, he made the announcement this week that he is not going to seek re-election this fall after 12 years serving the council.
Correct.
So,
3 terms, 12 years, seems like enough?
Seems like enough. So we're going to talk about why it's enough for Mr. Alongi here, and also do some reflection on your years of service, and also get some talk about the next council member for Ward 1. Maybe get some tips from you that you might want to share with them.
Happily.
Also, maybe get some names that you might have heard that might be running. So we're
Less likely.
We're gonna try and get some juicy stuff here.
Right.
So let's talk about first of all the decision. And
Sure.
was this something that's kind of a slow burner for you, or is there a moment that you're like, you know what, I think this is it?
Slow burner, I would say. I really didn't make the decision until, let's see, I put the press release out on Monday. I didn't really make the decision for real until Friday or Saturday, I would say. And I've been thinking about it for about a year. I've got a son in Hastings High School, William, or Will as some people know him as. And I'm very conscious of the fact that this is his last year coming up. He's just got a summer or two left, about a year and a half left in Hastings. I've got a daughter, Christina, who's at Hamlin. And that's nice to have her in St. Paul, and she's a junior. And so who knows how long she stays there. And I remember making a promise to family, including my wife, Mary Janice, making a promise that I was looking at 2 or 3 terms. I was looking at 8 to 12 years maybe, if the voters even elected me the first time, and then the second or third. But then at that point, there are times when you want to make sure that you spend time with your kids as they become adults. I mean, it's just the best time. It really is. I mean, if you're going to go through all that trouble of having kids,
they are
enjoy them when they are at their most mature and really when they're at that cusp of some really remarkable achievements. And I want to see them. I want to be able to go to performances. I can go to most performances. I want to be able to go to performances when they have them. I want to be able to go to things that are important to them. My wife has ideas for trips in mind, and I don't want to try to balance that with the needs with the constituents, because if I make a commitment to run, then I run, and I serve if I'm elected. And that will sometimes put me in conflict, as anybody can imagine. It's a part-time job. It's not the full-time job. It doesn't happen from 9 to 5. I have a different job for that. This happens on top of that. So the idea of doing that on top of that, I mean, it's a commitment. It's time. It's not overwhelming, but it's something to take seriously.
Definitely. I mean, to put it in perspective for those at home, how many hours would you say a week it takes?
Well, it'll depend obviously on what kind of season it is. If we're talking about lots of road construction, if we're talking about something like Riverfront Renaissance, which is happening now, if we're in what part of the year we are for budget, I'm on the Finance Committee. So I would say on a maximum, you're talking about 10 hours a week in terms of committee meetings and going around visiting neighborhoods and making sure a given agenda item that might be coming up. And at a minimum 5. So you're talking about that 5 to 10 hours a week on top of things, but that doesn't include any reading that you might also do on top of some of the things. So it can take some time, and it ebbs and flows, but when it's flowing, it can be daunting at times, on top of a normal job, which takes up more than the allotted 40 hours quite often.
That's right, because you have a full-time gig at the state, correct?
Yeah. State of Minnesota recently shifted agencies. I used to work in employment and economic development, and I took a promotion into natural resources, where I run their policy and planning office.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's last few months, some big changes, and I'm enjoying the different feel of it all.
Nice. I know you've been very busy with the meetings, like you've been in finance committees, operations, Parks and Rec, chaired the Public Safety Committee, Administration Committee, Utilities Committee, HEDRA, chair of that for a while, the Hastings Economic Development and Redevelopment Authority, and even got to be mayor.
For a day.
For a day.
Or I guess a night. Until I hit the gavel, I'm not technically not in the acting capacity until the gavel comes, and then I'm not after the gavel comes down. But that said, it was
well done, by the way. That's great.
It was a privilege, and it was something that obviously it happened around this time last year. I think it was during legislative session. So Paul Hicks, the mayor, and Dana Elling Schultz, who's the most senior council member on council, they both have jobs day jobs that can sometimes take up all their time in the legislature. So during last May, I got sort of a heads up that this might happen, and so I was ready for it. We made sure there wasn't anything too critical on the agenda. We want to make sure that you don't, do anything that would dramatically affect, because the voters didn't elect me to be mayor. They voted all of us to make sure the city runs. So that's what we do. You get an acting mayor in there, and you make sure things move along. You don't want to have to cancel a city council meeting just because a couple of people can't show up. But at the same time, it was an honor, and it was fun, and it was good to do. And there was a lot of polite joking back and forth during that evening and afterward.
Well, I would say they indirectly voted you in as mayor, as on the council. Therefore, you're just fulfilling your responsibility as the acting mayor. And so, therefore, you had the gavel.
Yeah.
The any agenda item there.
I didn't have to gavel us out. I could have just kept it going.
You could have, yes, exactly. Did you practice your gavel form, by the way?
I don't want to answer that question. No comment.
I'm sure it's like picking your favorite kid, but if you had to narrow it down, what's your favorite committee?
I've always asked to chair planning. I came in through the Planning Commission. I ran initially on a platform of how we plan as a city, how we develop economically as a city, how we think through what our city actually looks like, the bricks and mortar, the roads that we put down. Those sorts of things are the things that last. And I've always asked to be on finance. I don't expect you would ever see somebody who could chair both planning and finance, except in the most extraordinary circumstances, because they're both pretty active committees, and there's a lot going on there. So Dana has spent a lot of years recently chairing finance, and I've spent a lot of years recently chairing planning, and there's others who I think prefer to chair Parks and Rec. It tends to work out. People tend the stuff that you really want to do. There aren't a ton of us who all really want to be on planning all at the same time. There aren't a ton of us who all want to be on that sort of thing.
I'd like to, let's talk about some projects that you've been involved in the last 12 years. There's, because there has been a lot of stuff going on in town.
Yeah, there has.
You got Lake Isabel that was done, of course the new bridge, obvious big one, Riverfront Renaissance that you had just mentioned that is going on right now, phase 3.
It is.
Tell us, and you've been involved in all of those. Take us through and tell us, what are you most proud of in your accomplishments?
So, I mean, the sense of small town pride I feel probably came with the accomplishment of my first major campaign promise, fulfillment of that, which was the Lake Isabel dock and pier there, that fishing pier there. I'd seen that as a resident of the neighborhood that we were underusing that lake, and there were drives to raise funds in the neighborhood. It's the east side of Hastings. It's not a different city, but it sometimes acts a little bit differently than the rest of Hastings, and that's a wonderful thing.
It has a personality.
It has a personality to it,
on that, yes.
and it's driven. And they are one of the few neighborhoods that they still come together for neighborhood meetings, and they raised funds for this dock, and they were lobbying and trying to get. It's kind of like this old school neighborhood, very charming and very productive, very grassroots. The way, frankly, that I wish more citizens would do that. More neighborhoods across America would act this way, because I think that they have a lot to teach. But they wanted an improvement there, and they have been told by previous city administrations. I don't think there's virtually nobody left here, so I don't think I'm insulting anybody. But they were having trouble getting heard, and so one of the key promises that I made right off the bat was, I will make something happen. I will find a way. I will get something in there so that people can enjoy the lake in a way that they really couldn't. It required some dredging, as well as construction, planning, of course, everything that went into it. And we ended up within 2-3 years of my first term, we ended up being able to achieve, this just wonderful accomplishment.
You've reflected on a lot of votes in your time, many votes.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from you, what was your most difficult vote you ever made here in this room?
One of my most difficult votes was one of my first votes that I made in this room back in, it would have been first week of January 2005. Right? The election was in 2004. You swear the oath of office the first Monday of January 2005, whatever number that is. And I remember it very much so, because I'd spent some time after the election, between election day and being sworn in. I spent a lot. I'd already been campaigning. I'd already been taking a look at a lot of different issues. One of the key issues at that time was downtown, and the relationship was rancorous, not just between downtown and the city, but between groups of downtown residents, business owners, building owners. It was a difficult time because there was a vision to do certain things. Where we have that nice new parking lot, we paved everything there. They were gonna put condos there. There's nothing wrong with condos, but there was a significant group of folks that did not want condos in that particular area, to sell public land and then have a private actor benefit in that way. And that was actually one of the issues that I had run on. That was actually one of the things I'd said, that I would not support that we would find a different way to leverage the riverfront, and that we would try to keep it as open as possible to the community. There were other private lots that are owned in that area where condos may be absolutely appropriate and a wonderful economic boon, but not there. So we were going to vote on it that night. It was on the agenda. And so I went to the different downtown players, if you will, the stakeholders,
yes.
and went and talked to them. And there was one, I won't be naming any names here, but there was one individual that I spoke to, and I said, so how can I best represent you? And I knew that he disagreed with me on this issue. He wanted to see the condos, and he said, well, here's what I would like. And I said, well, I can't do that for you, and I don't want to lie to you. So what I will do is I will say, if these three conditions are met, I can go your way, but I need all three of those conditions to be met or I won't be able to. And he said, well, that's fair enough. And so I came to the council hoping to be able to either get some sort of deal in the moment, or to be able to table the issue. And neither of those things happened.
Neither happened though, huh?
At the time, it was a different mayor. I think now maybe I'd be able to, and Michael Warner, who was an excellent mayor. Michael Warner at the time, I think, he didn't know me. He had no reason to know or care. And they'd been talking about this. By this time, the other 6 people up here had spent more time than they wanted to talking about this. So when I come up here with my grand ideas and I go, oh, geez, wouldn't it be nice if we talked about this some more? Can I get you to do this? Can you do that? He's like, no, there's already a motion on the table. There's already a second. Looks like he's looking to cut off conversation. Like, can we table it? Can we table it? No. Not going to table it, not going to table it. I explained during the meeting that I feel like I'm helping to generate, I'm just new at this. If you could just give me 2 weeks, the next meeting we could vote on it. No. So blew right past me. I went down 5-2.
Wow.
Ed Rivenes, no longer on the council now, but been one of my best friends ever since. Ed Rivenes from Ward 3 at the time.
He's the only one. He's the one that joined you, huh?
Bless him, he joined in. He helped me out, so it wasn't a 6-1 vote, I guess. He felt bad for me. Or, he explained later he agreed with me, but at the time it felt almost like a pity, like somebody, some guy draws the short straw and back and says, I guess I got to vote with Alongi, right? but he's always been an excellent partner and colleague. And that night he made a hard vote, even a little bit less difficult for me. So I came out, feeling like, oh gosh, I'm never going to get anything done. And then after that, the guy comes out of the audience that I've been talking to, and he's like, "You broke your promise." And I said, "How do you even define that? How do you say that?" I said, "I asked for these conditions," and he said, "That's not what I heard you say." And so it was very difficult. But now the good news is, by the time the re-election came around, he was one of my most ardent supporters, and he became a good friend. He was somebody that was both one of my hardest votes, and also I think one of my most productive, because it really was something that was sort of like, welcome to the council.
No kidding.
Boom.
Talk about baptism by fire.
Welcome to the council. You lose, and now try to pick up the pieces. And we did. It takes time. It wasn't just me doing it. It was through the partnership and finding ways to work with all the folks on the council, my colleagues, work with staff, work with the community. The building owners in that area formed an association shortly afterwards, and being there as a resource to them, being a resource to the Downtown Business Association, being a resource to anybody in the community. And it took time, of course, and it takes. But now, if you ask around there, I think you'll find the feelings aren't. There aren't those camps. It's not. Everybody has a more unified vision of what we accomplish.
Let's talk about who's going to be sitting in that chair next. Tell me, what advice would you give to that person?
Sure.
That may be elected, that will be elected to sit in that chair.
It's really about listening. I don't want to sound a little too cliched, but it really is about listening first. I do a lot of talking. Don't get me wrong. There's a time to talk and speak up for your community, and a time to. Sometimes it's about educating voters. Sometimes it's about relaying back what you think you've heard. Sometimes it's about trying to convince other people here to vote your way. Sometimes it's about asking the right questions of staff and others. So there's talking. Thank goodness, or I'd probably explode. But first, what people don't get to see as much of is the listening part.
Yeah.
And the hearing. And even during a hearing, of course, there's listening, and it's a little more visible then. But before the meeting even comes, you got to be listening to staff, you got to be reading, you got to be looking and observing. If say it's about a property, some judgment needs to be made on a property, you're going to rezone something, you're going to do something different. You got to go there, you got to look around, you got to think about what the implications are. You got to talk to people who know more than you do, and you got to show a little humility. If I were to say, and I probably have several of my council colleagues watching this now are probably giggling as they hear me say this, but humility, it really is so important to the job. So for me to say it, a little bit funny, but there it is.
Oh, you have that. You have that.
You're very kind. And then in addition to that humility and that listening, I think it's a matter of demonstrating respect to the institution here. I mean, government nowadays, a lot of people don't hold it in very high esteem.
No.
Or as high esteem as it used to be held in, to the extent that it was ever held in high esteem. And I think that people sometimes forget that a local government, a city government, can still operate incredibly effectively. Can be the equal of any private or nonprofit institution you can think of, particularly of its size or anything remotely approaching its size. So when you have a staff and a council like this that's operating pretty darn well right now, we don't all agree with each other all the time, but we respectfully disagree. We do it in the way that keeps the city operations running. There are city councils that will go unnamed in this interview, but there are city councils. All you got to do is look at the papers or look on the websites of papers to see plenty of places where the taxes, the cost of doing business are higher. The taxes are higher. The costs of doing any sort of business with the city have grown because you can't get things done the way that you can get them done in a city where people respect each other. So having skilled city staff, having city council colleagues who respect each other in the institution and who respect the constituents who come in when they come for a hearing, I think is critical. So a lot of people think of a leadership position like this as something where finally I get to get in there, I'm going to change everything. No, you're not, actually. And I don't mean that in a, you won't get to change anything. I just mean to say you're not going to change everything because that's not your job. We don't have that much time on this earth. So you have to be smart enough and humble enough to prioritize those things, those changes that you will make that make the most difference. So figure out what they are before you get here, what you think they'll be.
I know, it's kind of fun to just...
That's your plan. Yeah, don't just figure out what your platform is, knock on the doors, talk to the people about it, and then once you get here, get your job done, because that's what we're elected to do. That would be my fairly long-winded advice. When the person gets elected, I'll gladly invite that person out for a drink. I'll buy them a round or two and give them, additional advice if they ask. But mainly, I would say any elected official of the people needs to listen not just to my voice, but to the voices of the 5,000 Hastings residents that they represent in Ward 1, as well as the 20+ thousand across the rest of Hastings.
And now for the juicy question.
Sure.
Who have you heard? Have you heard any names of potential candidates for your seat?
I'm aware of a couple that may be interested, but I'm not at liberty to give their names.
Sure.
So I do know that there are some that may be interested. I don't think anybody's definitively decided to run. The names that I've heard, they may decide that these people may decide that they would rather not. There may be, and I'm sure there may be other people, wondering whether or not they might make a good council member. And if you think you might make a good council member, maybe you would.
Yes.
And I'm more than happy, incidentally, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who's interested to know about the job. I mean, do an informational interview. I think it'd be a...
I think that I would highly recommend that. I think that sounds like a smart idea.
Happy to help. It's not a job requirement. If you'd rather not talk to me, that's fine too, and you can go far by not listening to me in this world. But I do want to point out that the filing period is, I believe, May 17th to May 30th or 31st.
You got it right. Yeah.
So and you do that here at City Hall. So if you're interested, I recommend getting your hat in the ring within that date range if you expect to actually be on the ballot. And so talk it over with family. If you have family members that you might be pulling time from, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, and see what kind of issues are important to you. And if you think that you can make a difference, and you think you have the humility and the skill to do it, you know, the filing period's open to all.
And bring $5. I think it's $5, right? For the
it's affordable. And don't forget that this is for the Ward 1 seat, which in Ward 1 is everything that is east of Vermilion Street in Hastings, broadly speaking. It's pretty much everything that's east of Vermilion Street in Hastings is Ward 1, so you got to live in the ward.
Final question.
Yeah.
What's next? What are you going to do with all that spare time now that when you won't be on the council?
There's a variety of things that I've considered. Obviously, since I'm doing it in part to spend more time with family. If I don't spend more time with family, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yes, you would be, yes.
So there's going to be some travel with my wife and possibly our children if the schedules align with our kids. If it doesn't, shucks darn, we'll have to go by ourselves. But we'll spend some time as a family doing some things. I'll be attending some events. My son is very active in the arts in Hastings High School, and I'll be hopefully be able to attend more performances than I have in the past. He's in fact in the musical. He's actually in the band of the musical this time. He's usually on stage. This time he decided to let somebody else shine. Good for him. There you go. So I'll be spending some time, whether he's in
some of that humility passed down there. It sounds like.
Well, jury's out on that. but we'll see. He's definitely very talented, and he is in a variety of different things throughout the coming year and a half. And I'm going to help. He's going to. Be looking for a college. I'll be helping him with that. I'll be helping my daughter with whatever comes next if she asks, which she's indicated she might ask for some help with that. And I'll also be spending some time by myself, I imagine, in some quiet reflection. I've picked up the cello recently. I'm taking cello lessons at the Hastings Arts Center, which is something that Hedra helped finance. And it's kind of nice to be able to take advantage of its wonderful art center that's right here in our community. So I've recently am learning the cello, and I've spent some time with community theater, the Black Dirt Theater.
Good group
it's something I hope to do maybe a little bit more of. I haven't been able to do as much of that as I'd like lately. I've only been in a couple performances these last few years. I think maybe try to do another one of those, and then maybe a few months into my non-fourth term, if the mayor or somebody were to call and ask me to help with some volunteer committee or something like that, I certainly want to be helpful. I certainly want to, if the right opportunity comes up that's not too time-consuming but still has some impact, were to come up, I would be open to that. I'm not going to leave Hastings. I'm here, and I'm sure we'll find a role in the community moving forward.
Can you say with 100% certainty, no more politics?
No, I'm not going to try to be coy about it. I mean, I'm certainly not looking at any higher office, in the immediate future. But I really enjoyed this. This was grand. And if I didn't feel an obligation to family, a very good and loving obligation to family to spend time with them, maybe I would have gone for a fourth term. So at the point where family feels like they're good, I might throw my hat back in the ring, and Ward 1 might see me again, and you never say never to stuff like that, because I think that I think it's been good. It's been a good career here, and it's just been one last thing I just want to make sure, which is to say to anybody from Ward 1 or anybody anywhere who's I guess really if you've been in Ward 1 and voted for me, if you've been somewhere else and voted for me, you probably shouldn't have. But anybody in Ward 1 who's voted for me at any time during the last 12 years, I just want to say thanks. This has been something special for me. I hope that I've repaid some of that faith. And a last story for you to end on, what I hope will be a laugh. My wife and I were arguing about something, as you may recall from Tales of Love interview we did a couple months ago. From time to time, my wife and I have a spirited discussion.
Yes.
And she said to me, she looked me in the eye in the middle of this argument. This was only a year or two ago. And she goes, I can't believe that I voted for you twice. And I looked at her and I said, I've run 3 times. and it was just an auto win for the argument. Yeah. It was just, her face just fell, and you just like, there. That right there. One of the few wins I've had in any argument with my wife over the last 20 plus years of marriage. you got to take them where you can.
Oh yeah, that's as big as like forgetting the anniversary or something like that.
Agreed.
You know?
So whether you voted for me once, twice, or 3 times, thank you very much, and thank you, Tom, and for you, your colleagues that are here, and everybody in Hastings Cable Television. You guys have done a wonderful job of covering us, of digging into the issues, of asking whether or not there's big issues that are coming up. I've enjoyed all of our conversations, and I'm certainly available, whatever new capacity I serve, whenever you need somebody to, just be a stand-in for you. I'm about the same height.
Yeah, about the same height. Yeah.
I can find some work doing that, perhaps.
Well, feelings mutual. I a lot of respect for you, and I got to say I'm happy to hear that it's not 100% certain that no more politics for you, because I think you have been quite the asset for the city. And I think the city has been very fortunate for you to be sitting in that chair the last 12 years.
Thank you.
So I was happy to hear that.
Thank you.
So we'll see, huh?
Yeah, we will.
We'll see. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take care.
And also I want to say I admire your courage to make this decision too. I think people, I think it takes just as much courage to step away from something as it does to step up, step to something, because, there's addition by subtraction in a way, I think, with that for sure.
Yeah, agreed. You got to know when to leave.
You do. All right. Well, thank you folks for joining us on this special interview in the City Hall. And this is your Ward 1 council member, Tony Alongi. So if you see him out in town, buy him a beer. It's going to be
Please.
Yes. There you go. You're welcome for that, by the way. Hopefully it works. All right. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.